Yeah, the topic is the universe is still waking up, and the tagline to that is, and so are we. I talk often about how we're a part of nature, and we think of nature as the trees in the background and the lake and neighborhoods and what have you. That's true, but I realized that when I was putting this together, we don't often think of the universe as nature also. That's sort of a larger neighborhood, right? So that's beyond our concept, how billions of light years and all that. And I realized that we all live within the context of the universe. Things exist on our planet as a result of things that go on in the universe. And I mentioned this before. I was looking through images for deep space, and there was a collision of two galaxies. There was one galaxy was crashed. They were crashing into each other. And I thought, we're affected by pretty much everything that goes on around us, and sometimes seemingly less so by deep space. But we're somehow in harmony with all of that to some degree. And we have the awareness to know that we can be or are not in harmony with that, and can be in harmony with that if we're not. The task is to really kind of identify with our environment and to understand that we're a part of that, no matter how small. As I often say, a small but essential part of the cosmos. And it also emphasizes that the work that we do with mindfulness and compassion and all the related topics are part of that waking up process. When we do that, we're very much in harmony with the universe in general. And we're very much in harmony with the earth, because the earth doesn't stop supporting life. It continues to support life in whatever way it can. And if there's a mess, Mother Earth knows how to clean that up, whether it's an oil spill or Chernobyl or whatever it is. She'll figure out how to metabolize that into something positive. And so it emphasizes to me that one of the things that we're doing, one of the ways to look at what we're doing here, is we're learning how to continue to grow. I said frequently that we all have this impulse to grow and flourish, and a drive toward meaning and greater understanding. And when we slow down on that, we don't feel so good. I may have mentioned this, I don't remember. When I work with people who are creative people, I have mentioned it a couple of times, but people who are creative, like to paint or draw or dance or whatever it is, or write, if they're not utilizing that talent, that creative impulse, that limits their ability to be happy in life and really find their place in life. Even if it's the smallest little thing. All the way from, one client, she does scrapbooks. We've talked about this a number of times. When she runs into some difficulty, I remind her of the scrapbooks, and she goes back and does a scrapbook, and it helps to bring things into focus for her. And she can see her emotions. She can become aware of her emotions and work with them. And all the way to this fellow. Is a well-known country and western singer, and it's a long story, but he was trying to exercise his talent, but he got a sidebar. Apparently his wife wanted to do something else, so they started this whole other company. I just kind of warned him, you got to keep singing. You've got to keep writing and singing. And I don't know if he did or not. I didn't follow up. And then there's another client I have, a young woman it wasn't really a traumatic upbringing, but it was one that really lacked a lot of guidance. And so as she was growing up, she didn't really know what she wanted to do in life and what kind of career she wanted to pursue or whatever. And I asked her, is there anything from child, and I ask this often of clients who kind of feel stuck, is there anything, particularly early in life, when you were a kid, that you really enjoyed? You just loved doing it because it was fun. And she said, yeah, singing. She used to be in a choir, and she used to sing on a regular basis. And I said, do you sing any more now? She said, nah. I said, well, why don't you start singing again? Anyway, she took a little step. She started singing at home. And then I said, well, why don't you, is there a karaoke place near you? And so, I couldn't do that. So she, anyway, long story short, she went out to a karaoke place and she felt really good doing it, and people really liked what she did. So then she kept going to more karaoke, and she was out of town at one point, and as she told me later, she had a couple of drinks in her, but it was a huge group of people. I mean, it was like this big party, this big venue, and she got up and really performed. I was astounded. She was not only just singing; she was really a performer. She was very much, was even kind of shy of saying that, but she was really proud of it. And now she's thinking about going back to school or getting a job that's with her degree. So little by little, she was able to open up, and that was her connection to her authentic nature, her true nature. And whether she'll professionally or just be something she does, here and there, don't know. But she'll enjoy every minute of it. We know that. And it really has given her access to her true self and her truer self. And it's really changed her life. It's just wonderful. So when we have a creative impulse, whatever it is, it may be for thinking. I have a client who's a young man that he loves to think about philosophy, and that's his creative, his act of creation is in philosophical discourse. Although I remind him gently, sometimes he's kind of off in the weeds. In other words, it's not helping him with his relationship. So we have to talk about emotions and things like that. But he loves it because he's using this creative impulse to create something and look at current philosophical discourse and see where he might have a voice in that. And it's helping him to set things into perspective. So whatever the impulse is, whether it's creativity or it's making a contribution, or whether it's just helping out, doing something in the community, is really, it's important. That's where we really get to connect with others. And there's a book called Man Against Himself. It was written a long time ago by Carl Menninger. It was one of his many books. And he goes through very systematically it's all about how human beings do things that harm themselves. And all the way from the very beginning, like from brushing teeth up to having multiple surgeries. And everything in between. He goes through all this detail. His book's like 400 pages long. And he talks about the psychology of each of those processes. And at the end, the final chapter is what to do about it. And basically said two things. One is socialization, meaning increasing one's social activities, and two, psychoeducation. Those are the best, I guess, medicines we can say. Those are the best medicines for what we're doing today. We need education about how all this stuff works. That's vital, so we know context and why things are happening the way they are, so that we can learn how to not identify with them, and also increasing our socialization. There's a talk on TED Talk recently that I just listened to. It was a wonderful talk. I hadn't run across him before, but I'm going to look up his research. He's been studying behavioral psychology for a long time. And socialization. The results are really clear. It's everything that we say here is that we don't work so good when we're not really fully socialized. We're kind of keeping to ourselves, and we have a negative thought process come up, a sort of a self-defense process. And he uses the example of like sitting on a train, and how a lot of people, including himself initially, had a lot of irrational reasons not to talk to the person beside them. Anyway, he goes on and elaborates about that. But it's the social impulse that was really important. It was really important that social impulse has a voice. And we may think, well, I don't really like them. They look kind of like a nerd, or they kind of look like this, or kind of what would they think, if it's somebody of an opposite sex think they're hitting on you or you're hitting on them or whatever. If we just say something anyway, and we'll find that most people also want to connect. Not everybody, but some people do. I mentioned this before. I was walking to a parking lot from a building, and this woman was coming the opposite direction, going into the building, and I said something, I forget it was, like, it's a great day outside or something like that. And as she walked past me, she said, you know, you look really good in green. And I just thought that was so cool. And because I was wearing a green jacket. So these little tiny things, to me, are really, when we talk about the value and the power of human interaction, those little interactions have, to me, tremendous power. In a sense, if we take a look at value, what are the things that are the most valuable on the planet? Well, they're diamonds. You know, only a few carats is worth an enormous amount of money. When we take a look at that, it shows us quite clearly quantity is not necessarily quality or value. But when we do that, we tend to make our day a little better and other people's days a little better. You know, I remember that gal and that comment for a long time because I just realized how much it just perked up my day. I wasn't particularly unhappy, but it just added a little perk, so to speak. So the theme for today really is how can we continue to grow, and that we're going to continue to grow to our very last breath. That impulse will be there in some form or fashion in every aspect of our lives. And when we start working with that, know that we just keep going. And those are the instructions. The instruction book has one chapter in it, and one page in the chapter says, keep going. If it's working, keep going. I mentioned this before, but one teacher said, you know, the spiritual path is like a snake in a tube. It can only go forward. So we can stop if we want to, but it will be very uncomfortable. So we keep going, inch by inch. So there's really two themes. There's that theme of how keeping going is important, doing what we can on a regular basis. And two, that we really are as much of a part of the universe as any galaxy or star system or Milky Way or anything. We're just saying we're part of it. Infinitesimally small given the magnitude of the universe, but still incredibly important. And we think about all the cells in our body. I forget, I looked that up once. I don't remember what the number is, but it's like billions of cells. And so we can think any one of our cells is, just one millionth or billionth of our body. But who knows what happens if that cell wasn't there? There's some very important processes going on in the body. If we don't have certain cells there, we really don't work right. So we have trillions of biological transactions happening on a daily basis, second by second, trying to keep us alive and well. And working with that are these practices, because they help bring new life, mentally and emotionally, and they help us to wake up and be aware of different perspectives that we may not have had before, and continue to grow. And that everything likes to grow. I'll leave that for another time. Not everybody wants things to grow. Let me put it that way. I was going to go off on a tangent there, but not everybody wants things to grow. There are a lot of people who want things to stay the same and try to control everything around them in order for that to be true. And they're going to wind up losing big time. It may take a while, but it runs contrary to nature. And so the best thing I think we can do, in my opinion, is to continue to grow. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. And as we do that, we really make a contribution to the entire enterprise. So those are my thoughts on that. What we're going to do is start with a mindfulness practice and getting into the present moment as best we can, and then taking that out into different levels of awareness of just right where we are in space and time. Okay, so places, everyone. Thinking, finding a place where you can don't have to move any muscles and remain comfortable, and we'll begin. And settling into the silence like the bell. And settling in, settling down, allowing the body to come to rest and to ease into the stillness. And perhaps feeling the pull of gravity, our weight, points of contact with the chair or the floor or wherever we're sitting. Into this neutral space without past or future. The present moment as best we can. And allowing our whole being to come to rest. And this sense of presence, this place we sometimes call now, or the pause, is the only place where things really happen. Which may help us to more easily let go of projections and reflections. And sort of making ourselves at home here, right now. And allowing our mind to be free of external things that we don't need to consider. So when they arise, if they arise, let them go. doing our best to simply be present to the experience of this very moment and absorbing that experience and being with it. Settling into just being. And taking this opportunity to just settle and enjoy simple presence. And the more we are with this presence, the more the seemingly external world drops away. And settling in like a flat stone settles at the bottom of a lake. And now in this space, allowing compassion for oneself to arise. That fills in and smooths over the rough spots, the difficult times. For our life right now, or things that have followed us from the past. But like air or water, working its way into even the tiniest spaces. and allowing full vent for it to flood in. Allowing it to fill us up into every single aspect of our being. Enlightening, sustaining, nourishing, protecting. And it's accepting how good and nourishing that feels, bringing a deep sense of peace. And now bringing to mind the people closest to you, whether you like them or not. Sort of your inner circle of friends, relatives, colleagues. Allowing this radiance of compassion out into this circle of friends also, and close associates, loved ones. And remembering that all we really have to do is allow, and compassion does the rest. And feeling this sense of being part of a larger field, connected by compassion and wisdom and the flow of life. Whether we agree with them or not on certain things. And continuing to extend this field through to acquaintances, people that you may not have seen in a while, but that there was a good relationship. Or anyone now, people that you may see on a regular basis that you may not know very well. And allowing this radiance of compassion to extend through to them as well. And continuing to extend to people who we don't know at all. Maybe passing by them in the park, or seeing them on a bus or train, walking down the street, and radiating to them as well. They're as deserving of wisdom and compassion as anyone else. And continuing to expand to every being on the planet. Humans, chimpanzees, butterflies, mosquitoes, that everyone, every creature is being held in the circle of life by the earth. Even though those are the few that work against it, we extend to them also. That maybe one day they can wake up. And extending to the earth itself. One great mother being, from whom all this life and beauty arise, makes it possible for us and all beings to have a place and perhaps reminding ourselves that wisdom and compassion are an inexhaustible resource. And allowing this to continue to spread throughout our solar system. And our galaxy. And our Milky Way. And out through the universe to its very edges, of which we can barely conceive. And holding ourselves, this little tiny speck of being that we have here, in this larger context. a small but essential part of the whole. Getting a sense that it is all in the process of waking up. Filled with wisdom and compassion. And perhaps getting the sense that we are there and here at the same time, simultaneously. Participating and witnessing at the same time. And allowing this experience and these notions to settle in, soak in. And allowing the body to absorb them as best we can. Like water being absorbed by a sponge. Filling our body with this experience. Enriching and pacifying. So then in a moment, when the bell rings again, you can bring this with you as you go about your day. And come back to it at any time. And carry it with us wherever we go.